Hello friends, Jenkins Dota here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on behalf of DotaAlchemy.com, and this video is going to be part of the Mental Game video series. And in this video, I'm going to be covering the topic of dealing with ladder anxiety. So my motivation for making this video is two things. Number one, I am a very anxious person. I'm anxious as fuck talking to the camera here, and this has been a problem for me in quite a few facets of life, but it's been manageable. However, in Dota, it has been an issue. And then number two, I've coached quite a few people recently, and before I do a session, I like to talk a little bit about how they feel when they're playing Dota, how they feel before they play Dota, basically psychology, because I think it's really important in Dota to understand that aspect of it. And the general consensus that I've seen is that a lot of people are anxious when they're playing this game. Even if they don't think it, there's some sort of negative emotions that are onset from pressing that Q button and getting into a ranked game. So for me, in my career as a competitive player, I've obviously had quite a few ups and downs, but one thing is for sure, if you were to ask any of my previous teammates what their biggest issue was with me, skill-wise, they'd probably say that I have a tendency to choke. I can take an advantage, but I will potentially throw. And I think a large reason for that is without a doubt, anxiety. And the same people that would say that would be pretty confused by me because there are situations that I've been in. For example, WCA 2015, it was a Chinese LAN. We were playing in we being Leviathan. I was playing offlane at the time, and we were playing Wings Gaming, obviously a very, very good team. We were playing for $50,000 or something ridiculous, which is just so much money for me at that time. I mean, it still is, obviously, but so there was pressure. There was obviously pressure there, and that didn't bother me. That did not cause me anxiety or caused me to choke. In fact, our performance was quite good. We ended up going 1-2, so they beat us in the best of 3, but we took it to a game 3 against a very good team, as a team that wasn't expected to do anything. So performance-wise, that was great. I didn't choke, and people would wonder, like, why the hell didn't you choke? Obviously, that's a very pressureful situation, and the thing is, that's not what causes me to choke. I don't really care about the money, about the people that are watching. It's not that I don't. It definitely gets to me a little bit, but nowhere near as much, nowhere near as crippling as what I'm about to cover. So basically, what bothers me, what causes me anxiety, is the fact that I can let my teammates down. So the pressure of people losing faith in me is something that can really, really get to me. I don't know what it is that happened in my past that caused this to be such an immense focus for me. I'm not a damn psychologist. I don't want to look into the history, but there's always something, and I'm not sure what it is, but for some reason I cannot stand if somebody thinks ill of me, even if somebody's a complete bully, a complete jackass. If somebody thinks I'm an idiot, it bothers me. It gets to me. I'll lose sleep over that, and that might not be your issue, but guaranteed, because you're a person, because you're human, there are going to be things that get to you in Dota, and just like me, there's a chance that you get anxious and you choke, or you play differently, and obviously you want to be consistent in Dota. So if you're getting anxious and playing differently in different games where somebody else is impacting your play, that's not good. That is obviously not ideal at all. The bottom line is, the more anxious you get, the shittier you'll play. That is without a doubt true. There are tons of studies that show that there's a correlation between anxiety, stress, and performance in a negative way. It makes you play like shit no matter what it is that you're doing. You will do it shittily. And obviously Dota is not exempt from this. So before I get into what I have done to deal with that for me, because my MMR currently has never been higher than it is, and I think that's as a large part due to the fact that I'm controlling my environment, which is controlling my anxieties. There are a lot of things that I'm doing where I don't get bothered anywhere near as much by people disliking me or flaming me or criticizing me, which obviously happens a lot on USE, so this is a bad problem to have. But my brother said to me, Andrew, no matter who you are, male or female, black or white, smart or stupid, it doesn't matter. Every single one of us is still trapped inside a dumb ape brain. And there's very little that you can do to change that other than go walking in front of a train or something like that. And at first glance, that's a bit scary of a thought. That's a negative thought. But it's actually kind of freeing. And it was freeing for me at the time because I was feeling kind of negative thoughts. And that's just because it allows you to control how you feel. Because neuroscience has shown us that the brain can be tricked. There are certain triggers for things. There are certain buttons you can press as long as you know how to press them and abuse it. Don't allow yourself to be controlled by your stress and anxieties when you're fully capable of controlling them yourself. One thing that I heard somewhere was that the human brain is the first thing that we know of in the universe that has done science on itself, that's tried to figure itself out. And I thought that was pretty fascinating of a thought. And it's true. You may as well abuse that fact that we are capable of understanding the chemistry of our own brains and the neuroscience behind it. And you can absolutely abuse that. So if you're not convinced by the philosophical or motivational approach to this argument, then maybe a little bit of science will convince you. So there's a really interesting example of a study. People always do this. Professors do this in class with their students. But you can take people and dip their hand into a bucket of ice water, which, by the way, is a very, very painful thing to do. And they will, hold their hand in there for, let's say, a minute. You take 50 people, put it in put it in ice water. Take another 50 people, put their hand in ice water, but instead of just having a bucket of ice water, you say, okay, you swear now. Say whatever you want, pick 5 swear words, whatever dirty swear word you want to use, swear. And studies show that people can actually hold their hand in ice water for 50% longer when they're swearing. So basically, even though pain is obviously hardwired and biological, or at least it seems like it, you can actually control it. You can control pain. You can mitigate your pain by fucking swearing. That's insane. And obviously there are tons of other aspects of your brain that you can control as well. It's not just pain. Like I said, pain is something that's very hardwired, and yet you can control it. Imagine what you can do with your anxiety. So I've comprised a list of things that I've been doing in the past 5 to 6 months to help alleviate my stress. And I gotta say, if I consistently do these things, then I don't really give a fuck if people flame me. And that's something that's miraculous for me because, like I said, I really, really do deeply care. It bothers me, but when I'm doing all of these things, it's very, very hard to care because you feel like you have such control over your life that it doesn't matter. And hopefully you can, at the very least, translate some of these things into something that will help you. And so the first thing that I do, and this is going to sound really hokey to people that don't do this, but bear with me, I'm not somebody that thinks that crystals can predict the future or that plants can talk or listen to humans or anything like that, but I drink a lot of tea, and there's a lot of studies that show that this is actually really good, and it's not because of the contents of the tea at all. That's actually bullshit. A lot of people say, oh, you drink this herbal tea and this will happen, and a lot of it's bullshit. There's no data to back that up for the most part, but what there is data to back up is that the routine of drinking tea is something that has been shown to reduce stress levels for people, and for me, it helps a lot. If I'm feeling anxiety, if there's, people that are feeding, or the game is really, really hard, or there's courier feeders or something like that, I'll pick up the tea, I'll do the little dip thing, and there's a routine that I do. I'll put it up to my mouth to see if it's like hot. The fumes, the water vapor will come out, and I'll feel it and know if it's too hot, and then I'll take a sip. And it's this routine that basically grounds me. It gives me this structure where it's like, okay, no matter what's going on in this bullshit, this is the thing that I do every day. This is the thing that is giving me control in my life. And it's kind of like people say, I know people say this all the time now. They say, make your bed. Get up in the morning and make your bed. They make you do it in the military. And the reason for that is because it gives you that structure. It's that thing you're doing every single day. It gives you that sense of control. So even though it might sound stupid, it's basic psychology, and it absolutely works. And tea is what works for me. So for you, it's vaping or taking a walk every time you die. Whatever it is to give you structure, absolutely do it because you'll play better. You'll be less stressed. So speaking of going for walks, when you have some sort of tumultuous thought or some sort of, those nights where you're sleeping and you just think about some dumb shit that you said, and it's like, oh my god, I can't sleep. I can't believe I said that. It's so silly, but you can feel this obviously, at any time, and can drastically affect the way that you play Dota. So if you're feeling like your brain is just crowded with thoughts, what I would suggest doing is going for a walk in the dark, or showering, turn the light off and shower in the dark, or just sit in a room by yourself, do nothing, and turn the light off. Just no senses, just sitting and thinking, just be alone with your thoughts. And it's very, very important to be alone, because the idea is that you think about those tumultuous thoughts so much that you get fucking bored of them. And eventually, when you get bored, it's not going to matter to you because you're so bored of thinking about it. What's the point of having it bother you? It's like, God, that's boring, And that's something that people use to help PTSD patients and stuff like that. So that also has been shown to work. So if you're dealing with something like that, then just absolutely, you can actually think about it enough that it'll be boring and that you'll deal with it that way. So the next thing that I do, and this one is going to sound super hokey and ridiculous to people that, goddamn, I'll just show you. I have a candle. And I'm laughing because this is something like my 60-year-old mom would do. She has candles all over the house, and there are all sorts of scents and stuff like that. But for me, it's more reminiscent of the tea, where it's something that I have, and it's just sitting to the right of my computer. I look at it, it grounds me, it brings me out of the bullshit of the game. If there's people flaming, if there's chaos going on, it brings me out. I look at the candle, I remember I'm alive, I remember I'm physical, I'm in the world, and that, you know, there's just this candle. It actually reminds me of Christmas too. It's kind of cozy, so it's very hard to have negative thoughts when I'm thinking of Christmas as a kid, so that's something that really, really helps. I really like the candle, actually. The smell is pretty good, but once again, a lot of people say that the smell, oh, it cures this and cures that, but I don't think there's data to back that up either. But it is nice. It's a nice thing, and psychologically it's good, but maybe not physically. So, speaking of psychologically, I listen to a lot of classical music lately, and I'm actually not too fond of a lot of the classical that I listen to in terms of I wouldn't, you know, listen to it at a party, or if I had a choice, I'd probably listen to something else. But it's more so because of the feeling that classical music can give you. It's very calming for the most part, or it's very epic, it's very methodical, it's very structured. There's nothing to really focus on in classical. You can kind of just feel it, and it's something that you can feel, and it doesn't distract you, but it also makes it so that you're not focusing on other distractions. It's something that kind of gives you a middle ground. It's really, really nice. Ideally, I'd like to listen to hip-hop. That's probably my favorite genre of music, but listening to hip-hop while you're stressed is kind of like you have a cut on your arm, so instead of like putting a band-aid on it, you cut your whole arm off. Like, it just doesn't make sense, right? It's redundant. It's like this visceral kind of rapping, and it's not good if you're stressed. So classical really helps me, and actually I've noticed that a lot of offlaners, if you watch Universe or Brax or somebody like that play, they listen to a lot of classical, and of course listening to the calmest form of music while playing the most difficult and anxiety-inducing role makes a lot of sense. So the next thing, and this is something that, like I said, people repeat a lot, it's something they do in the military, but keep your room clean. Keep your vicinity that you're playing Dota in very, very clean. So if you look around, you're not getting bothered by the clutter. You're not feeling like there's this world that's closing in on you. Heat's important too. Like, make sure that your room is not very hot, because that can make it so stress really, really gets way higher than it should. I don't know if there's any physical reasons for that, but it just feels like if you're angry and it's hot, it's like, fuck, it's so hot in here, you know, or goddamn, it's so cluttered. It really, really bothers you. And once again, it's something that provides you structure too. If you feel like everything is clean, there's nothing to focus on, there's nothing on the to-do list, at least in the immediate vicinity, and you can be very calm. So I would definitely recommend doing that. Obviously, like I said, the military does that too. That's a pretty big thing for them for obvious reasons. So in a game, if I'm feeling very, very anxious, I will repeat something in my head, kind of like a mantra. I will think of what the job that I need to do in that game is. Like, okay, if I'm Vengeful Spirit, I need to stun this guy in the fight. I need to swap this guy out. Okay, I'm going to swap this guy. I'm going to swap this guy. I'll keep saying it to myself, and that'll give me something that I can focus on that's not just, okay, does this guy hate me? Is this guy going to trust me? Oh my god, I am going to fuck up. Like, I'm not going to think all these things if I'm just like, okay, I got to do this job, got to do this job, got to do this job. You know, it's like, creates this structure for you, and it's very, very helpful, at least for me, to do that, and that makes it so I'm not focused on the bullshit. So the next thing is probably the most useful thing that you can do, maybe the second most useful, but it's very useful, and that's breathing deeply. If you're very, very stressed in general, it's shown that breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth and focusing on just your breathing alone will reduce cortisol levels, which is the stress hormone. So obviously, if you're very anxious and your cortisol is going down and down and down, you'll be very calm, as opposed to super, super anxious. So you definitely want to do that in games of Dota when it's not going well for you. Let's say you die, you have no buyback, your team loses 2 racks, feels really bad, but that's not the end of the game. You want to win that game, because if you win that, that's a plus 25 you wouldn't have otherwise gotten. So you want to breathe deeply, make sure that you reset, that you ground yourself, and you can go into that game objectively rather than being stressed as fuck. So the final thing that I do, and probably the most important thing that I've changed in the past 5 to 6 months, is that I work out. And I know it's not obvious, but I do work out, and there's a lot of studies that show that if you work out, you get a huge endorphin rush for that day, and it's honestly like doing crack cocaine. It's ridiculous, the amount of happiness that you can derive just from doing physical workouts, and that is a very physical, bodily, biological thing that occurs, and there's so much information on that out there, so I definitely recommend working out because you feel confident, you feel happy, you feel positive. There's so little that somebody can do to ruin your day when you're working out just because you basically have crack cocaine flowing through your veins. It is ridiculous. So I would definitely recommend that. I would recommend actually everything on this list if you're dealing with anxiety, but I would definitely try a few things, and you know, if things work, then that's great. Add, remove things, and try out your own things. And I would love to hear, actually, if you guys have any suggestions for me for things I should be doing that can help. That would be fantastic. Anything else is great. You know, I'll add to the list. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it, guys, and I hope to see you in another video.